my shirts, why I eat at the buffet. Butter, you got your very own kind of nice. We all live inside a butter world. Oh, butter, gonna eat it by the stick tonight. Gonna eat out this world. Oh, butter, I'm about to take a bite, 'cause I want that salty cream. What I dream about all night. Butter dreaming. I'm about to take a bite, 'cause I want that salty cream. What I dream about all.
All right, man. Welcome back to another episode of Buttercast. We are your hosts. My name is Anderson.
And I'm Jay.
And today we're joined by the Fellowship of the Nate, also known as Nate Klipfel. What's going on, man? Welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We got a... There we go. Shout out, Nate. Song again. Shout out, Nate. Welcome. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah.
You're joining us from Nevada, is that right?
Yes, Henderson, Nevada, just outside of Vegas.
Oh, cool.
Nice. Looking super jacked. Like you're about to destroy that T-shirt.
To be fair, I did just I do well, you had this in the question, so we'll talk about it a little bit more as we go, I'm sure. But in my current training regimen, I do kind of like 2 to 3 little micro workouts throughout the day. So I had just finished one of those like 30 minutes ago or so. So that could be part of it.
Nice.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's a good idea for your a pre-show pump.
It wasn't actually intended for that. It was literally the only time I could squeeze it in. And so I had to like throw that in there really quick because I was like, oh crap. Well, after the interview, I'm not going to have time to do the workout. And yeah. So
yeah. Cool. Yeah. We'll have to ask you about that. Yeah. So, Nate, you want to just like introduce yourself briefly? So, carnivore powerlifter. I think that there's that many carnivore powerlifters out there.
Yeah, I haven't met any others, at least not other than, Sean Baker. And I technically haven't met him. I'm part of the Rivero Health community. I'm like a member of the site and stuff. So I join the meetings. I'm not like a administrator or anything of any kind, but yeah, so I've only kind of seen him tangentially through that, never actually met him in person. But besides him, and then maybe kind of Mark Bell, but he's not really like carnivore. He just supports it, and he still does like fruit and rice and kind of like Stan Efforting style, like vertical diet kind of stuff too. And supposedly that kid, Tristan something or other, I just heard something recently that like kid who's, I want to say he's like 11 or 12, and he's like super jacked and shredded. And I saw something saying that he actually eats carnivore or mostly carnivore, but he's more of like a bodybuilder. So I don't think he powerlifts. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really know anybody else.
Tristan. Yeah. Is that Asian kid?
Yeah. Like super lean. He's like 2% body fat at like 12 years old. Yeah.
He's 12 years old.
Wow.
I think he might be more like 14 now.
Tristan Lee.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think that's him. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have some comments here from the live viewers. Thanks guys for tuning in. Shout out to Tristan Lee. I've seen the clips about him. I've never realized he was actually a kid though. I thought he was just like, short.
A dude. Yeah.
Like
No. Yeah.
Short
Apparently
dude.
he started and he was like already that jacked by the time he was like, I don't know, 11 or 12 or something. And now I think he's like 14 or 15 now or something, but still very impressive.
Wow.
Yeah, we have Frank in the house. Shout out Frank.
Shout out to Frank.
Oh, San Bernardino. Nice. I used to live out in California.
Yeah.
So Sandy says.
Oh, he's 20 now. Oh, wow.
He's 20. Yeah. So we got fact check. Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
fact checker Sandy.
Yeah, does look.
So maybe he was 14 or 15 when he hit the scene, and now he's didn't realize it had been that long.
Yeah, he is
That's what
super
happens when
super lean though.
start
I don't
getting
think
old.
that feels good.
Yeah, probably not. It's a good chance with that kind of like development and vascularity. There's a good chance he's probably on something too, some kind of gear. Who knows?
You never know what's going on behind the scenes nowadays.
That's pretty young.
Yeah.
Which is
I hope not. I mean, I hope that's
Yeah.
all natural. Like, good for him if it is. But yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah. So you were asking me to introduce. Yeah. So I'm a power lifter. I'm a personal trainer and a nutritionist. I've been doing that for 10 years now. I was a skateboarder for many years. I was a musician as well. All kinds of. I've worn a lot of different hats. This seems to be the one that I wear the best. Not the powerlifting, but the training and nutrition side of things anyway.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of where I've dedicated my career now.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, this is like your passion.
Absolutely.
The training side of it and the nutrition side of it.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. So why don't you start telling us? So we've read a couple of your episodes. You were on the show with Anthony Chafee and also Dr. Sarah Seldiver. Yeah, great episodes.
Thank you.
If you're listening, if you're watching, go check them out. Nate's got a very cool story. He's a cool guy, cool records and everything. But
Yeah.
why don't you start by telling us a bit about how you kind of found your way to the keto diet and then the carnivore diet? What was your first exposure to these?
So keto came first. Yeah, as I mentioned in some of the other interviews, and it was originally introduced to me by a friend of mine, my one of my best friends in college, and he then referred me to his doctor named Dr. Michael Franco, brilliant doctor, physician out in LA, and he had a pre-written plan from a long time ago, because apparently he'd been recommending keto diets to people for years. This was back in 2012, 2013, I think, 2013, I believe. And it had just been recommended to me for my seizures, because my friend knew that I had seizure auras. I had been on medication for a couple of years. I had a grand mal in 2010 that was really bad, and ever since then my thought processes had gotten worse. I'd had more trouble focusing at school, and 2013 was the year that I graduated college, and I was on track to graduate, but I was starting to have some very serious, like, short-term memory issues and stuff that had never happened to me before, and that I knew I was way too young to start having. And so he just recommended this, because none of the other doctors ever bothered to look at my diet, because I've always worked out and I've always looked like I was in shape to some degree. And so, the doctors just called it an undiagnosed seizure disorder, because they didn't know what else it was and didn't think anything of it. So they threw 3, 4, 5 different medications at me and just hoped one would stick. And they all created a slew of different issues. So when they suggested diet, I was like, sure, yeah, I'm on board. Like, I like food and I like being able to eat whatever I want, but I would much rather have a diet change than have these weird medications that are screwing with my head all the time. So 2 months of that, and I'm off all medications, and I've not had a single seizure aura for the rest of my life ever since then.
Wow.
10 years later.
2 months. Wow.
That's it. Yeah, 2 months. After years of them getting worse and worse every single year, and medications kind of controlling it sometimes, but not entirely, and then having severe side effects with my mood, mental health, all kinds of things, and then just completely gone with 2 months of keto. And I wasn't even like, it wasn't even like a really well structured keto either. He just gave me like a printout of like, here's some keto foods, and I was bodybuilding at the time also, not taking any, I never took anything like any steroids or anything like that, but I wanted to be a bodybuilder, and so while I was doing that, I was just like, okay, well, I know I got to keep my protein up too, because bodybuilding, and I know I still got to eat like 6 or 10 times a day, and I got to have protein every 30 minutes, and so I was still, I think at one point I was tracking everything. It was like I want to say I was getting like 200 to 250 grams of protein a day, somewhere around 200 grams of fat, and then I would try to keep the carbs below 30 to 50, because that's what I learned I could get away with and still maintain ketosis. Yeah. So I was not like, and I was not at all thinking about the health aspect of it. So like my ketosis originally was, I was having vegetable oils because I didn't know any better. I was like, oh, well, it's fat and there's no carbs. Cool. And so the craziest thing to me was that even with that, and even still having processed foods, and even still having, I don't think I cheated during that 2-month period. So I think I was pretty strict keto that whole time, but I was still having vegetable oils. I was still having processed foods, and I would still have like protein bars and stuff that had actual sugar and stuff in it. I would just make sure that my total carbs for the day never went over 30 to 50. So it was still like a bunch of crap that I was eating. And even with that, it still completely cured my seizures, So
Wow.
that was kind of my impetus for, oh, okay, there's something very, very real about diet that I did not know, and I had no idea could affect my health that much. And I felt better too, like just mentally, physically, everything. And then I started getting accused of taking steroids by I was working at a local gym at the time, and because I lost, right before that, I was doing a GOMAD for bulking. I was drinking a gallon of milk a day. And so I put on like 20 pounds and just felt thick and heavy. And of course, it wasn't raw milk. It was pasteurized crap. and I just felt like fluffy. I got all the way up to like 215, 220, which I'm 5'10". I have a good amount of muscle mass, so I can handle that weight, but I don't feel good at that weight. And so in that 2-month period, I dropped from 215, 220 all the way down to 185, just like that. And not only did I not lose any muscle mass, I gained a significant amount of muscle mass in that time. And so all of my managers were just like, okay, so what cycle are you on, dude? Like seriously though, like,
Wow.
I know you're claiming that you changed your diet, but like, seriously, like what, like you taking some tests, like some growth, what's going on? Like, no, I swear, I literally just changed my diet, guys.
Yeah. And that was all within the 2-month period.
Yeah. That was just that 2 months, 30 pounds down, feeling great.
Man.
I leaned out a lot. Like I remember it was just one of those crappy little handheld bioelectrical impedance scanners that I would use to test my body fat. But I went from like 15% all the way down to the lowest I got, it was like 8 or 9%, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a drastic change. Yeah,
in 2 months, especially not even doing things correctly, just making small changes, not knowing what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, where are you sitting at right now? Just out of curiosity, like in terms of weight.
I just weighed in right now. I have eaten twice today. So I was 206, but fasted in the morning. I'm usually around 200 even. I float between 195 and 200 typically. Sometimes I'll go as high as like 202 to 205, but it's incredibly easy to regulate my weight now. Like I don't even have to think about it. I don't count anything anymore. I don't count calories. I don't count macros. I just eat meat when I'm hungry, and I stop when it stops tasting good. The Anthony Chafee,
Yeah, makes sense. What were some of those like keto meals you were having when you were starting out that they helped you feel better? They were not entirely like necessarily clean, but just out of curiosity for anyone looking to start.
So I was still in that kind of bodybuilding mindset. So I would do things like in the morning, I would have like a low carb yogurt with berries and like, I don't think I had, oh no, I found a granola that was like kind of low carb as long as I didn't have too many servings of it. And so I would do berries and granola in the low carb yogurt. And then I would add a scoop of protein to that. And then I would have like 2 or 3 protein shakes a day, because that was an easy way to get more protein in without getting too many carbs. And then I want to say, and then I did a lot of Quest bars, because that was right when Quest had come out, before they actually got in trouble for that first time for like actually having more total carbs than they claimed in their bars, and so they tasted a lot better back then.
Hey.
Yeah, they actually tasted like candy bars, and so I was just eating them up. So I was actually probably getting more carbs than I even realized, because like I said, they got in trouble for that because some diabetics were having like high blood sugar episodes after eating them.
Wow.
So they had to like change after that, and then they just never tasted quite the same. But yeah, so I would have things like that, and to be honest, I mean, I was still eating meat then, but it wasn't a huge focus. I was never really a big steak person. I liked chicken more. So I ate a decent amount of chicken, and sometimes do ground beef, burgers. My college buddy and I would often go out to eat, and almost every time we went out to eat, it was either Chick-fil-A, because we could get those nuggets because they were 17 carbs. And I still remember this. If you got 2 orders, it was 17 carbs, 84 grams of protein, and like 33 grams of fat or something. My brain is weird with numbers. I haven't ordered that in probably 10 years, and I still remember those numbers for some reason. But yeah, so that was like one of our staple meals. Then we go to like Chipotle and just get steak bowls or mix of chicken and steak bowls with guacamole and sour cream and cheese, and all that stuff loaded up in there. So yeah, so it wasn't like I tracked all of it, but it wasn't like well regimented. And I was literally just trying to hit numbers. I was like, okay, well, I know I need at least 200 grams of protein. Why? Who knows? I decided that was the number I needed to hit. Mm-hmm. And then I would just try to get as much fat on top of that as I could, and then try to limit the carbs without going crazy, because I'd never had to limit anything before. I was never overweight. I never had issues. When I was a kid, I would eat a pound of See's candy easily, and have donuts for breakfast every morning. And I never thought I would have to change that, because I never saw anything wrong with it, and never saw any health problems from it, or at least I never thought I saw any health problems from it. Didn't realize that I felt crappy my whole life because of it.
Yeah, no, that is probably the most fascinating aspect. Is it's just, I guess, just the macronutrient composition of your meals, just at the high level, just changing it, kind of solve your seizure problem.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. You want to check the comments real quick?
Yes.
Yeah. So Sandy had said 14 when he started roids, probably.
Oh yeah, about
back to Tristan. Yeah. Go Matt for health. He approves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gallon milk a day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would maybe work if you're having raw milk and the only other thing you're eating is some steak maybe, and you're just training like a beast. But yeah, it's
a lot.
That's rough.
Yeah. Frank C asks, is there a certain time frame that you start and stop eating for the day? That's your question.
Now, so yes, actually. So what I've found now, I've done all kinds of experiments with fasting and things. I've done the longest fast I've done was a 6-day. I've had like 8-week periods. Actually, leading up to my second powerlifting competition, I did like a 12-week period where I only ate 4 meals per week. So I would have 1 meal on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I would eat nothing else outside of that 1 meal, and everything else would just be water, or I think I was still having like energy drinks at the time, but they were 0 sugar, whatever. Not that that's good, but but yeah. So now what I've standardized myself to, that I learned seems to work the best for me, is I'll usually have a pretty solid breakfast now. I wake up somewhere between 3 and 5 a.m. normally, just naturally, because I don't seem to need to sleep very much.
Wow.
I just do it. Yeah, just doing this as long as I have, like, and I also, to be fair, I do also meditate for usually an hour, sometimes more a day. And I think that provides so much rest for me that, 5 to 7 hours is easily more than enough sleep for me. So yeah, so I'll just wake up at 3 or 5 a.m. And then I will meditate for a little bit, do a quick cold shower, and then do a ab routine from Squat University. If you guys have ever seen him, he always recommends the McGill Big Three. I actually fixed some serious back problems that I used to have, so I do those every single day without fail, no matter where I am now. And then I go and I have my breakfast around between 5 or 6 a.m. usually. And then sometimes that's enough for me, and I just have that be my one meal, and I don't eat again until the next morning for breakfast. And then other times, if my workout's intense or it's kind of a slow day and I'm just feeling hungry, then I'll have one more meal on my lunch break here at the at Lean Dog, the place that I work for my full-time job as a trainer. And that's usually around like somewhere between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. depending on flow of clients for the day. And then that's it. So, like, I'll have rare days where I get home and it's been like a busy active day and I've been talking a lot or something, and I'm like, okay, I'm still a little hungry, so I'll have like a little bite of something, whatever. I like to make my own pemmican, and so I just keep that in the freezer all the time. I also make you guys probably heard of the Carnivore snacks. I make my own of those. I got a crappy little dehydrator from Amazon, and and then I got a slicer, a deli slicer, and so I just take big cheap roasts of meat. I slice them real thin, and then I throw them nice crispy chips. That's delicious. And sorry, I was getting a call. So I'll just snack on something like that when I get home, because I usually, I start work typically between 6 or 8 a.m. and then I'm done usually by 8 p.m. So it's fairly long days. And so I try not to do too much when I get home, just so I can get like really good quality sleep, because I know I'm only going to sleep 5 or 6 hours usually. So so I try to make sure to get to bed relatively early there, and I do a sauna before bed too. So I try, for me, eating too close to bed doesn't work. I know Chafee has talked about how he actually likes to, have a long day, and then at the end of the day, he just eats and he rests and digests by going to sleep. And that actually makes a lot of sense to me. But all the times that I tried to do that, it would be harder to fall asleep because I felt like I was still digesting. And then I would always feel like I would either wake up more throughout the night, or my sleep wouldn't be as good a quality, maybe because I was competing between sleeping, recovering, digesting, who knows. But yeah, I feel as long as I have like a good 2 to 4 hours between my last meal and going to sleep, then I sleep great.
Yeah, no, that I think we've tried that too, right? Doing like OMAD, and your one meal is right at the dinner one. And I think we ran into the same problem of digesting. It did impact our sleep, so we kind of moved away from that as well. We're doing 3 meals right now, pretty relaxed on timing as well.
We'll usually prefer a smaller meal towards the end of the day. Because anything too big, it's just, it definitely messes up my sleep. But that's so interesting, like how some people feel entirely the opposite way.
Right. Well, and I'm convinced partly that because I've always been a big eater, so like I'm no Sean Baker, but I can eat a lot of meat in a single sitting. And especially when I was doing one meal and having it in the evening, like, you would be 2 to 4 pounds at least, sometimes 5 pounds in that sitting. And I think the people who do really well with that late eating, even if it's OMAD, I don't think they eat that much, because I was just listening to Chapey's his most recent podcast with that guy who's 49, Asher something. He's 49, and he said he eats like 20 or 22 ounces, which is barely not even a pound and a half. And so, and I think that's what a lot of people who do that probably do. They just don't eat huge amounts at night. They just eat like whatever's comfortable for them.
Wow. Yeah, that is kind of a small meal if it's your only meal for the day.
Right?
Yeah, seems so. Yeah, because we would have like at least 2+ pounds of food at dinner time. So
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Sean Baker though, he can eat like 3-4 pounds of meat in like 10-20 minutes. I don't know how he downs it so fast.
Yeah.
You've seen those videos?
I mean, he's a mountain of a guy. I have a friend who I actually met after Chafee's interview. He reached out to me on Facebook, and so he and I have been talking, and he actually met Dr. Baker and just said that the dude's just a mountain. He's like 6'2" or 6'3" and 240. I think he's up to like 250 or 260 now.
Yeah,
just muscle, pure muscle.
He's a giant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Frank says, "Thank you for the detailed answer. I took some notes for myself. LOL."
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm glad it helped.
Thanks for tuning in, Frank.
Yeah, you're in for a treat, Frank. Nate's gonna make you strong.
Yeah, Nate's gonna make all our numbers go up.
Yeah.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, no, seriously, go check out his clips on Instagram. I mean, I think you were hitting like 400+ pounds on like all the lifts. I mean, those are some impressive numbers, man. Like that's not easy.
Thank you. Yeah, I started powerlifting in 2019. My first competition was May of 2019. And so prior to that, it was like all of my programming was bodybuilding. I thought powerlifting was stupid. I was like, why would anyone just do 1 rep of something you're not going to get a pump from that? You're not going to get muscle hypertrophy. Like that's stupid. And so, but then I started training clients who either were powerlifters or were like just naturally insanely strong, and they wanted to try competing. And I was like, okay, well, if I want to train somebody on how to do this, I have to know what it's about. And so then I started studying it and practicing it and researching it. And then of course I finally did, after I trained 2 different people who broke world records. I was goaded into competing myself. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I can't have clients that have world records and never have actually competed myself. So then I did a competition and just fell in love with it. It's so much fun, such a great atmosphere. It's totally different from any other sport because no one is there really to beat anyone else. Everyone is there just to beat their own numbers. So the entire time, every single person there, like nobody wants you to fail a lift. Every single person there is like, no, you better make this lift. And so it's all just this huge crowd of people getting excited. And yeah, it's a great atmosphere, good experience. Just somewhat disorganized. The only problem is that competitions aren't super well organized, but it's a lot of fun.
No, that's awesome to hear because it is true. Sometimes the gym culture can be very ego driven. So you go to the gym and then like you see dudes lifting and then they give you a look or whatever. It's about just putting the most number on the bar. But it sounds like this powerlifting atmosphere, it's more friendly, still competitive.
Yeah.
But
right. Yeah, it's still competitive. But what I like about it is also that, I mean, I think that there are things that they could probably do to get a little more strict in terms of like form. But they do have some pretty good rules, in terms of like form stuff mostly to prevent injuries and prevent people from suing, but also, to make the competition uniform so that everybody's getting judged the same, and everyone has to squat to the same level of depth. Everyone has to hold the bench press on their chest for the same amount of time. And deadlift is a little bit free form, which is one of my complaints about it. You know, you can sumo or you can conventional, and they don't really care about how you get it up, as long as you're not like sliding it up your thighs, as long as you don't have to use your legs to help you up, then you could have a super rounded back and terrible form, but as long as it comes up without cheating, then it pretty much counts in a lot of cases, which I think is a little iffy. But again, it's a good, wonderful atmosphere there too. And so just the last few years of doing that made me realize two things. Number one, how much fun it is, and how much easier it is to stay very motivated in the gym with something like that, because after I had already been bodybuilding for 10 years, more than that. Yeah, almost 12 years, but by the time I started powerlifting, because it was 3 years ago. Yeah. So I was starting to get, I kind of felt like I'd worked through all the different types of hypertrophy programs and all the different ways in which I could mix things up, and you kind of just make lateral progress at a certain point. It doesn't really feel like you're building towards anything. And you start to kind of lose sight of it. And so when powerlifting came in, I was starting to think, oh, well, now it's much easier to make that kind of linear progression and see like, okay, are these concrete numbers steadily going up? And how can I tailor my program to make sure that in the long run, they slowly continue to go up more and more over time? And so, I just started getting, I'm a huge like nerd with that kind of with numbers and that kind of thing. So tailoring programs in all different kinds of ways to maximize the absolute most I could add on to my lifts each time. That was why I did the 12-week cycle of 4 meals a week, was because I had been reading more about fasting and autophagy. And I'd seen these studies where it talked about how growth hormone and testosterone were increased by, 500 some percent after, I think it was like 48 hours of fasting. And so I was like, okay, well, if I do that multiple times a week, get these huge testosterone and growth hormone boosts, and then do my workouts, what's going to happen? And I actually felt good throughout all of that. And when I did that competition, that second competition, so my first one was in May 2019. My second one was in September 2019. So it was only a 4-month difference. And I want to say I added 30 pounds to my squat. I added 30 pounds to my bench, 20 or 30 pounds to my bench. And then I added 50 pounds to my deadlift. Which
Wow.
for people who've been training as long as I have, you shouldn't really expect to have that kind of shift like ever. you should be lucky to add those numbers in a matter of years if you're not on steroids. And if you are on steroids, you're still lucky to do that in like a 5 or 6 month period, let alone 3 or 4. So, and then when I did that competition, it was at the gym that I was running at the time. And so not only did I not get to sleep because I was working, I worked for like 17 hours the night before, but I had to come in and open up, and they were so disorganized that I had to set everything up for them. So I had to move around the entire gym, which we had thousands of pounds of equipment to move around, and I had to do it at like 7 a.m. And then I had to start the competition, and the competition was not well organized. So it lasted for 12 hours. So I was lifting from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. And I was fasting the whole time. So I was, by the end of the competition, I was like 40 hours fasted. And so, and everyone, it was so funny because all the other just seeing all the other competitors, they're all stuffing their faces with donuts and with family-sized bags of gummy worms and all kinds of just nonsense. And they're all thinking, oh, this guy's going to bonk out. He's going to bonk out and not be able to lift because he's fasting. And then I broke all of my records. So I thought that was kind of an interesting experience. So not anything that I would recommend, doing that kind of workload, and that was not a good situation to be in. But the fact that I could do that with only 4 meals a week for a whole, training cycle was pretty cool. I don't like to do that much fasting anymore, just because I don't think I need to. I fast like once a weekish now, where I'll do a 24 to anywhere from a 24 to sometimes 48 or 72 hour. Like last week was the first time I did this in a while, but on Wednesday, in the morning, I was like, I don't feel like eating anymore. And so then I just didn't eat until Friday night. And then that was actually when on Saturday, that post that you just saw, that was when I put up all those numbers, which I think is kind of interesting. So
what the heck, bro?
Yeah.
Some secret.
Yeah. Well, there is some science and evidence that says that after breaking a longer fast like that, a 48 to 72 hour, if you break it well and you don't eat crap, then the next day, your hormones are in a much better place and you'll be feeling much better. So I think that's possibly part of why, because I always do those heavy lifts on Saturdays, just because that's my like free day to do whatever I want in the gym and just see how many compound lifts I can fit into a 2-hour session. So those Saturdays have been going really well ever since I've been, doing at least a 24-hour or 48-hour prior to it.
Wow. So I was into fasting a lot. Like before I was even into keto, it was like I was into IF, and also like push myself to doing to 72-hour fast and 5-day fast, and then ultimately like a 7-day fast.
Oh wow.
And I did try to the time that I did like the 7-day fast, I did try to do resistance training, and I was able to maintain my strength all 7 days, because I heard Dr. D'Agostino say he was deadlifting all throughout his like 7-day fast, and he saw no changing strength. I can't remember if he felt stronger, but I tested it out for myself, and I was like, yeah, I guess you don't need to be stuffing yourself 6 times a day to keep your strength, and losing a day of food doesn't make you weaker. So this story about 4 meals a week across 12 weeks, right?
Yeah.
It was
8 or 12 weeks. Yeah.
8 to 12 weeks. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
I like to do things to the extreme sometimes, just as a challenge, because everyone told me that you can't be a power lifter and be carnivore, or you can't be a power lifter and not have carbs. Like, it's just not going to work. You're never going to get anywhere with it. I was like, okay, challenge accepted. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. At the other layer of, only 4 meals a week.
Yeah, 4 meals. But were those like four was each meal like probably 2 days worth of food, would you say, or
probably? Yeah, because at that time I was pretty broke, and so I was getting my major meals were either about 2 pounds of ground beef with 10 to 12 eggs and a little bit of cheese, or just I would sometimes just pre-make this, because I wasn't strict carnivore then. I was still kind of like mostly carnivore, kind of keto-ish still. So I would make this just giant batch of 10 pounds of ground beef with vodka sauce in it. So it was like spaghetti-ish, but it's just ground beef. And I would have like, I don't know, two or 3 pounds of that. Or I would have 2 T-bones for some reason were my favorite steak at the time.
Good choice.
So I'd have like, thank you. I would have like 2 T-bone steaks that were probably each 16 to 20 ounces. So 2 to 3 pounds of T-bone with 8 to 10 eggs along with that. And I would usually put a little cheese in the eggs as well. So yeah, so they were not small meals.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. No, that's good to know, because I was like, I mean, that would be pretty hard to maintain if you were not eating enough on those each meal on those days that you were eating.
And I will say also, I think I remember stopping it because I felt like I was at the limit of it. Because by the end of it, I was just going to keep going with it after that competition. But then I started to realize that I was kind of like, oh, okay, the fasting doesn't feel as easy anymore. And I feel like I'm starting to deplete myself a little bit. So I need to start eating more again. So yeah, that was when I kind of cut back on it. And just, I think that was when I went to strict just OMAD for like a whole year, pretty much. Just one meal, because I couldn't, it was really hard at that point for me to eat more than 1 meal a day, because I was so used to that just big, large meal and then not having to eat for a while.
Wow. Yeah. No, that is interesting. Because we have messed with ADF in the past too. And yeah, you do reach a point where it's like, you do feel depleted, or actually losing gains, or not losing gains, but like it doesn't feel as good. So perhaps something like a shorter stint strategy, maybe not 8 weeks or 12 weeks, but something to try, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a week.
Yeah. And well, I mean, to be honest, what I do now kind of feels better, where it's a lot more intuitive, I'm not trying to do anything in any kind of rigid pattern. I'm really just trying to eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm not. And that usually ends up being a lot more sporadic, where probably 3-4 days out of the week, I'll have 2, sometimes 3 meals. And then a couple of days out of the week, I'll either just have 1 meal, or, I'll end up fasting for anywhere from 24 to as much as 72 hours. And that feels a lot better. It feels more natural, because I can just take that time to not have to worry about trying to work in extra meals. It saves me a little bit of money to do that. So yeah, I think the intuitive approach should kind of be the end goal for all of it, regardless of what you're doing. Like you want to be able to eat intuitively, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, sort of thing,
100% agree. And I think carnivore kind of does fix your hunger signals, right? It kind of takes away your cravings of something sweet, or something that to eat something if you're bored. So it makes more sense to be more intuitive, if your diet allows you to be really in touch with your intuition.
Right.
As opposed to a diet of Oreos, and then you're like, oh, I feel my intuition is telling me Oreos.
Right.
Complete nonsense.
Yeah, I should probably bring that caveat. Don't try to do intuitive eating if you're still eating crap. Because it's not going to work.
Yeah. But no, and I mentioned that because we did talk with Alex in a prior podcast, and about the whole intuitive eating movement, right? And it's like, it comes from a good place, comes from a good heart, but it's got to be good food choices. It can't be ice cream, right? Trust me, my intuition would tell me to eat ice cream every day for 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of kills me sometimes. Is I see a lot of these fitness influencers and some of them who are very obviously on steroids and are, don't get me wrong, very impressive people regardless. They're very obviously on steroids and they're sitting there telling people like, everyone's lying to you. There's no such thing as bad foods. There's no such thing as poison. Like you just have to eat your calories, you know, test out your calories, make sure that you're not eating too many calories, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, yes, calories matter. Like there is some truth to that, but you are way oversimplifying it. And that does not help anyone who is a food addict, a sugar addict, who has severe depressive and mental health issues, who is not taking steroids and hasn't been in the gym for the last 15 years like you have. You know, like that does not help those kinds of people because they just hear that and see, oh, perfect. That means I can totally have my donut every day as long as I just, you know, lower my calories. So that means I have less steak in the evening and I just have more donuts in the morning. No big deal. It's like totally fine. It evens out. So yeah, that doesn't work. And it very much sends the wrong message to people, and it makes me very sad to see, because I know I literally train those people on a daily basis, and some of them who have been fed that bucket of lies of like, well, no, don't worry, I'm going to work it off in my workout. So, you know, it's okay if I eat a whole bowl of pasta because I'm going to work it off tomorrow in my workout. Like, okay, well, has that worked for you? Like, you are where you are now because you've been doing that, right? So what's the solution?
Yeah. People have still have this belief that they can burn off the calories, right? They punish themselves at the gym, and I'm guilty of it in the past as well, right? Of eating.
Oh yeah, me too.
Eating outside the diet, and then it's like I'm just gonna hit it harder. Except my body, my joints started to hurt. I wasn't able to produce as much results or the intensity that I wanted, right? And yeah, it's comes to the diet.
Well, and that's where the over obsession with fasting was actually really dangerous for me too, because when I first started experimenting with it, I was still like, I wasn't, committed to any. I knew keto was good, and I was starting to get an idea that carnivore was a good idea, but I wasn't committed to it, and I was still kind of in that bodybuilding mindset of, well, you still have to have a cheat meal like once every so often in order to reset your leptin signaling and all that, top off your glycogen stores, all the nonsense that they tell you. And so I would just use that as an excuse of like, oh, cool, that means I can have my cheat meal every Sunday and have, 10,000 calories worth of Reese's peanut butter cups, ice cream, cookies, and donuts. And then I'll just fast for 2 days afterwards because no problem. And then I'll be fine. And yeah, that was miserable. And I felt like crap doing that. And it would take like the next week just to start to feel good again after undoing all my progress each week.
That's brutal.
Oh man,
that's brutal.
Yeah, I've fallen into that trap too of on my early fasting days of hey, I can just fast for 48 hours and kind of undo my Ben and Jerry's. So no. But yeah, that was years ago. I learned that lesson the hard way, right? Eventually you learn it either way.
Yeah. So Nate, did you ever since you started keto and then you transitioned into carnivore, did you ever have it when you had those cheat days or any relapses where maybe you had a little bit of junk here and there? Did you ever have any problems with like your health issues coming back?
Right. And so that was actually, I was both lucky and I was cursed in that way. I was lucky because I actually never had any resurgence of my health issues, even when I was having those cheat meals. So I was lucky for that. But at the same time, it was kind of a curse because I was like, oh, well, that means that all this stuff is just cured. So I can keep having these cheat meals. Like, it's not a big deal. Like I'll feel like crap for a few days, but whatever, it's just like being in college and partying on the weekends, you get the hangover and then you're good. And carb hangover for me was always so much worse than an actual alcohol hangover. Like I would feel, because it wouldn't just last the day. It would last 2, 3, sometimes 4 or even 5 days for me. And the thing that I didn't notice that was happening from it was the mood. Like I didn't notice that for probably a couple of years until I started to realize that, oh, you know what? For a couple of days after these cheat meals, I'm suddenly a lot more irritable. I'm kind of back to that like negative thinking cycle that I used to see myself in all the time. I'm more anxious. I'm more just prone to anger, and things kind of set me off. It's harder to have conversations with people. And I didn't realize that until later. So I guess I can't say, no, I didn't have those issues. I wasn't aware of them to that degree until years afterwards. And that's when I decided, okay, well, because at that time I realized it when I was working like 16 to 19 hour days, 6 or 7 days a week while I was running a gym. And I would see clients every single hour of that 16 hours. So I had no breaks, and I needed to be the high energy trainer, because my classes were between 5 and 12 people per class every hour the entire day. And so there was no point at which I could not be that energetic, happy-go-lucky kind of guy. And it was extraordinarily hard to do after having had a cheat meal. And so seeing that, I was like, okay, well, I can't be snapping at people, because I'm going to get 100 people asking me the same question every single day. And I have to understand that. And I have to be able to be patient, because they've only asked it once, even though I've heard it 100 times already,
Yeah. Wow. What kind of classes were you teaching?
Weightlifting. So just,
Okay.
yeah, just general strength and conditioning classes. But they were geared towards general public. So it was essentially like a combination of kind of powerlifting and bodybuilding that I was adapting for general public, for people who were just looking to lose weight and get healthy, be able to play with their kids, their grandkids, etc. So people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, all doing that was the cool thing to see, because I would get people who were in their 50s and had never really been in a gym, or at least it had been years, and suddenly they realize that they're able to deadlift 300 pounds or twice their body weight or something. And then that was really cool to see. That's what kept me going, doing that for so long. I had some really cool people, really impressive people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about the transition from the keto to carnivore. Like, how did you first hear about carnivore? Did you think it was crazy? Did you have any doubts when you heard about it, like this red meat only thing?
Yeah. So like pretty much everybody, I think I'm pretty sure the first place I heard it, it was either the Sean Baker interview with Joe Rogan, or it might have actually been, I think I saw that at the same time that I was listening to Amber O'Hearn, because she had a talk. She did like a symposia on low carb down under or something back in, let's say 2017, maybe 28. It must have been 2018, because 2018 was the first time I tried carnivore, was January of 2018. I did 21 days of meat, eggs. I don't think I did cheese. I think I was just doing meat and eggs, and then salt and pepper. And after moving to Nevada, I had never had allergies my whole life. But then as soon as I moved to Nevada, I just got inundated with allergies, and I always had a runny nose. always had sinus issues. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I asked people around, and every single person in Nevada was like, oh yeah, that's Nevada. Everybody here has allergies because because all of our plants are imported from everywhere, and there's so many non-native species here. And so you're just going to have allergies as long as you live here. Too bad. And I was like, well, that sucks. Okay. And I remember because the winters, I'm used to the desert. I grew up in Palm Springs. So it's not a whole lot different, except the winters actually get very dry and relatively cold, at least for me. I wasn't used to anything lower than like 60 degrees. So 30 degrees was a big change. And I would get like my knuckles would crack and start to bleed. My lips would get so chapped that they would be bleeding. I would get bloody noses just randomly, things that like didn't really happen to me. And then that 21 days in January 2018 of going carnivore, that all just completely disappeared and never came back. Like,
oh wow,
just yeah, yeah, totally gone. My allergies disappeared magically. Like it was just like it all took away. Like my skin, my skin improved. I stopped sniffling. Yeah, that was the first time. I remember it distinctly because I remember thinking that it was just like when I first started keto, where like a veil had been pulled from my eyes of this like awfulness that I'd been living in and never realized it. And then, I just figured all those years of keto, I was like, okay, well, this is as good as it gets, which I'm happy with. I don't have seizures, everything's pretty decent. But then I did that and I was like, oh, okay, I could actually have zero health issues and feel amazing like 100% of the time. That's a real thing. Like that's not just something that some weirdo on the internet says. Like I could actually do that. And then of course my friend goaded me into having a cheat meal, and then I got it in my head that oh yeah, I'll just do this carnivore thing most of the time and still have my cheat meals every so often, which was foolish and screwed me up for the next 3 years until mid-January of last year. I finally was like, all right, I'm done with all of this crap. I'm not going to do, because I had whittled it. I changed my cheat meals from like actual crap food to I would have keto cheat meals where all the new keto products were coming out, and so I'd use it as an opportunity to try out the new keto cookies or keto chips or blah blah blah. Still processed garbage, I think, but it would not do as much damage to me as like the actual sugary, carby nonsense would. But even so, I still didn't feel good doing it. And so mid-January of last year, I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm going to listen to Brett Lloyd because he was my coach at Rivero. I'm going to finally just follow the directions and just eat meat, salt, and drink water. And that's it. And I'm going to commit to this. And I did that. And I just never looked back since then. In fact, that drove me all the way to Lion Diet in June of last year. Because I was like, I just feel so incredible that I wonder, like, and I knew that there are grades to that. And I'm like, well, I wonder if I could somehow magically feel even better if I just went Lion and cut out everything and just had red meat, salt, and water. And so I did that for a few months, and lo and behold, yeah, I felt even better. And so after a few months of that, I want to say, I started kind of slowly reincorporating like a little bit of eggs here and there, a little bit of raw dairy, no milk, but just like a little cheese, a little butter. And then I will sometimes throw in like little chicken, little pork. I'll try to get it pasture raised when I can. But that's not always possible. And I will say, like I can handle those things now. I think what Lion Diet did for me was it healed whatever remaining crap I had going on in my gut, so that now those foods don't cause any like bloating or any kind of issues for me anymore. But I still know that beef and red meat has to be the staple. Like that is like 99% of the time. And then, you know, on a weekend, or if I just feel like I'm craving it, then I'll have some eggs or a little bit of cheese. But it's crazy to me that I can do that. And number one, the fact that I absolutely do not crave anything else ever anymore, which I dealt my whole life with food addiction. Like sugary, sweet things were just that I could never get rid of them. Like even though I had all the willpower in the world and I could go for like 5 straight weeks without ever having anything, eventually it would just plummet and I would have to, you know, I would have to have a cheat. And again, I'm convinced that was because I was still eating plants to some degree. I was still using seasonings. I was still on occasion having like diet sodas or 0-calorie energy drinks and stuff like that. And things that had sweetness to them. And that just ruined me. And so when I finally cut out all the sweetness, I even had to get rid of my toothpaste because the slight minty sweetness of that was enough to kind of trigger that response for me.
Wow.
And yeah, that was an interesting one to me. And I couldn't even use chapstick either. Like I quit using which actually once I went full carnivore, I actually didn't need to anymore because my lips stopped getting so dry, which was kind of cool. My skin health improved. But yeah, the chapstick had like a slight amount of sweetness, and that was enough to trigger me as well. And so now, like even just incorporating some of that cheese back in, I can tell when there's even the smallest amount of sweetness. And I'm like, oh wow, that's wild that I can notice just those very, very minute changes. But it's even more wild to me that I'm in control of it now, which I have never felt that before. Like if I had something sweet, it didn't even matter if I liked it or not. I would just mindlessly eat it and keep eating it and then wonder why the hell or how the hell that happened. Like when I knew that it was bad for me, you know, and this, you know, now I can say like, okay, like I'll have a little bit of this cheese and then that's it. That's all I need. And if I feel myself like trending a little bit more than I think I should, I'm gonna be like, okay, I'll just cut out cheese. That's fine. I know now that I can eat beef and salt and that's it for the rest of my life. And I would be perfectly happy doing that.
Awesome. When you were doing the lion diet, was it beef only, or were you like using like lamb, perhaps bison, or?
Yeah, I did. I found out that I really love bison actually, but it's more expensive. So I would get it when I could, and I would only ever get ground bison because that was the cheapest one I could get. But I really do like bison, and I liked lamb too. But for some reason, bison probably filled me up the best. And if I could have afforded it, I might have only eaten exclusively bison, to be honest. But lamb I felt really good from, but because it had such a richer flavor, I couldn't eat as much of it as I felt like I needed to. So like the fattiness of it, like I would get full before I felt like I was actually getting enough protein. You know, so I felt like I still needed to eat more, but I couldn't because I was too full and it was gross at that point.
Yeah. I know that feeling. Just recently we had beef ribs, right? And they're so fatty that you get full so fast. And I'm like, I definitely didn't eat enough this day to kind of just feel full, but I did because of the fattiness from the beef ribs.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Just there's something about the fat with the protein that hits different than just eating like a leaner protein.
Yeah, and I'm not that's something I'm still playing around with because I've noticed I kind of go through phases where on certain days I'll really want something fatty. Like I like to make my own tallow, and so I just get the fat trimmings from my local butcher and I render them down into tallow. And what's left over are those little, you know, the beef, they call it the beef crack, those little crispy bits. And so I'll freeze those and just have those as a snack on days where I just feel like I need tons of fat. And then other days that will gross me out, and I'll just want, no, I want like a New York. Like I want something super lean, just tons of protein, and that's it. So I think that's probably got something to do with the hormonal cycling that just human bodies go through. I mean, we know that women have cycles. People don't think about the fact that men also have hormonal cycles to some degree. It's not, we don't have periods, but but we still have hormones, and they do cycle to some degree.
That's the controversial take nowadays.
Right, yeah. So we got the people putting tomato juice in themselves to pretend they have periods. Anyway,
yeah, we're about to get canceled now.
I know. Sorry. Yeah. I don't want to get you guys canceled. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We're not politically correct at all.
No.
Fact,
Okay.
we appreciate that humor.
Yeah, being like nutrition and fitness kind of makes you, I don't know, being carnivore, I guess, makes you counterculture. So
It just makes you have common sense, right? And like,
Yeah.
wake up to
The thing that so Brett Lloyd talks about this a lot, and he's great. He talks about it. He calls it sugar brain, and it's not really meant to be derogatory. It's more like it makes so much sense, because when you do something like this, you think properly. Like I'm convinced now that if you are constantly running on sugar and having all of these plant toxins invade your body 100% of the time, every single day, you're simply not going to be able to think correctly. And I think that's what's going on in society right now. We have so many people who just literally cannot think properly because they've been fed this slave diet. Like that's what they're eating, the stuff that the kings used to feed to their slaves. And those of us who have gotten lucky or researched or whatever it was and figured it out and stopped eating that and just eat stuff that's meant for humans, we're able to think better. And we can use our critical thinking capacity to apply it to the areas of life that allow us to make better decisions, I'll say, without getting too political anyway.
Yeah. No, I
absolutely
100% agree. It's like you are awake to a different degree that you didn't know you were before, or more conscious, and it's also part of like the learning process that you go through, right? You went through the fasting. I resonate a lot with your story. You go through your fasting, you learn that you can fast. So you take away the BS that people tell you need 6 meals a day. So you start just by fasting, keto, carnivore. For you, it was pretty horrible disease. A seizure, a grand mal seizure is no like harmless thing. It's pretty serious.
Yeah, that was a scary thing.
so all those lessons that kind of led you to carnivore, it does make you a more critical thinker at the end, because you're basically fighting all mainstream advice, to put it simply. You're fighting against all of that, plus the social aspect of it along the way from it. So I 100% agree that you come out a stronger thinker from all of this food and experience.
Oh yeah, more skeptical with a better ability to discern, right?
Yeah.
What is real and what is not real? Because so much of the world we live in is just fantasy, like straight up. Cartoons.
Yeah, and as someone who loves video games, and I love fantasy, like Lord of the Rings is like one of my favorite things. Like, you got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, telling people that animal foods are destroying the world, that's fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Animal foods make people sick. That's fantasy, right? So, a lot of lessons.
Yeah. Let's check the comments.
comments.
Yeah, so from Oscar Guevara says, another podcast, same great information. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you for watching. Shout out to you. Thanks for tuning in, man. Frank says, what's the rarest animal you've had or meat?
Or meat.
Rarest meat, like in terms of cooking, like I've eaten raw before.
Yeah, I think it's like
but-
the weirdest animal.
Yeah, probably the least common. I haven't really gotten that adventurous yet, to be honest. Mostly because I have lots of access to the stuff I love, beef and bison, all of that. So maybe the weirdest thing I've had is like elk or deer, which is not very uncommon. I want to say I had some kind of intestine from something once. It was not good. It was at a Korean barbecue place.
Oh
I was
yeah.
not a fan. Yeah, I'm not a big. I used to be all about the organ meats, just because I had that same concern that everyone else originally had of like, oh yeah, but where am I going to get all my vitamins? And okay, well, organ meats are chock full of vitamins, so I got to have organ meats all the damn time. And it's like, but I really don't like these. They don't taste good, and I don't want to eat them. And so when I finally gave up on those was when I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't actually have to eat organs. Don't have to be miserable when I eat food.
Yeah.
I can actually enjoy it.
So you don't do liver anymore?
No, like I'll do it like once in a blue moon. Like for some reason, I want to say like 2 months ago or so, I had ordered ordered this like 40-pound sampler from this awesome place that's just up in St. George. It's like 2 hours away from me. It's a regenerative farm, family owned, beautiful place, and it's called Barton Beef, and they are ridiculously affordable, like crazy good prices. And so I ordered a sampler pack and I got some liver with it. And normally just the smell of liver is enough to kind of gross me out. But when I took it out of the package, I was like, you know what? This actually looks kind of appealing for some reason. And so I sliced it up and I just seared it in my cast iron really quick and ate it and was like, oh, it was actually tasted really good. So then I seared up the rest of it and I saved it in a container, tried to eat it the next day. Disgusting. So I'm convinced that that's one of those things where it's like, it's something that you have once in a blue moon when and if you crave it, or when and if it looks good to you. And the reason it didn't taste good to me anymore, I would guess, is that I had gotten the nutrition that I needed from it. And now my body's like, no, you eat any more of that, you're going to maybe get some vitamin toxicity or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's finish reading the comments from Frank. He said, men have mental periods.
Yeah.
I guess
Maybe. Sometimes I feel more sensitive.
I mean, yeah, some days at the gym you have that mental capacity. Sometimes you don't have that mental drive at the gym, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Give yak a try.
He says, if you enjoy bison, give yak a try.
Interesting.
Yak. I don't even know what yak looks like. Yeah.
I know I know this because my someone's been trying to convince me, because there's I don't drink alcohol because it comes from plants, and so, but I heard from one of Chafee's interviews that apparently you can make vodka from yak's milk, and they have actual yak milk vodka. So I have some friends who are trying to find this yak milk vodka just so that we can.
Or are we losing Nate?
Yeah, Nate, we lost you for a sec. You froze up. Yak milk, though.
Yak milk vodka? It's probably super powerful that it must be interrupted.
Yeah. Must have secret healing powers. Big Pharma's trying to shut us down. Guys, if you're watching, don't forget to like Where are you guys watching from? Let us know. So we have Frank here watching from San Bernardino, who's yak frozen.
Yak frozen. I know, right? Who knows what secrets he was about to share with
Yeah.
us?
Speaking of alcohol, I mean that's very interesting. Like an animal derived alcohol, I'd be willing to try. It's probably the best kind of alcohol you can have. So it comes from milk.
Yeah, we completely lost him.
Yeah, so he dropped out. Must have gotten a call. I wonder if his phone died. Hopefully not,
Hopefully not.
because this is a very interesting conversation. I have many questions I wrote down here for Nate. Because I actually feel like I resonate with him a lot.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like going through like the whole experience with food, dealing with food addiction, those addictions to sweets and binging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a similar story.
It's definitely like the longer you go without getting into those things, the easier it becomes, and like the more you can come to terms with the fact that you don't really need all that other stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love sweet things.
I mean, yeah, same sweet things for me. It's like it just hits you differently, but it also hits you differently on how you feel afterwards.
Yeah.
And then after having after having cheat meal weekend after weekend, it kind of gets boring to the point that you just don't want to feel crappy afterwards. So it gets phased out. You could say naturally, because naturally you just are fed up with it. Naturally you just say, okay, this is enough, right? This is like, I just don't feel good, and I want to enjoy my weekend properly. So yeah, you phase it out, which sounds like it's something similar that happened to the Fellowship of the Nate.
Fellowship of the Nate. Yeah, guys, make sure to follow him on Instagram. Frank C says,
Frank's.
Frank C. I always call him Frank Castle. The after effects isn't worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it. You'll never. I think I read this on his page, on Nate's page. You'll never miss out on anything by not giving in. Right? Does that make sense? So whenever you feel like you're on the edge of like giving into that temptation, it's like, oh, I'm gonna have like this one sweet treat. You'll never miss out on anything by not giving in, right? So it's like you have more to lose than you have to gain. You don't have anything to gain. That's the whole point. You if you give in, it's like you're giving into like the sensation of just that temporal pleasure in your mouth, right? Which is nothing but like tricks being played on you.
It's a food scientist that have engineered that food to create the desired effect.
Yeah.
Shout out to Courtney. Appreciate the support.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Moment of pleasure for a long time of misery, in my opinion. Yeah, and it's interesting because if you don't know carnivore, right, then all you know is kind of like misery and pleasure. And the pleasure comes from your cheat foods, your junk foods, and the misery comes from like all these bland salads. Or I love chicken, so I don't want to call out chicken, but it is normally it is like the health food of these days, right? I love chicken, but but it's what people think that you have to force down in order to be healthy, but it's not really that sustainable to just have chicken. Right now, my brother's getting in touch with the Fellowship
Yeah, I
of
was
the
trying to
Nate.
message Nate, see if he'll pop back in, or he's a busy man. He's at the gym. He took time out of his day in the middle of work to talk to us. So shout out Nate. Really appreciate him.
Yeah,
I'm personally just like impressed by the numbers he can pull. You don't often hear about carnivore powerlifters because you always have people asking you like, oh, there's no carnivore athletes, and
well, yeah, athletes need carbohydrates.
yeah,
Or you can't build muscle. That's a big one. You can't build muscle with carbohydrates. which is provably wrong. And
Yeah.
I mean, take a look at steak, at a piece of steak, and take a look at some rice. Even if you try to protein equate it, you're gonna tell me you're gonna tell me I have equal chance to build muscle on rice or steak. If I choose one or the other. Come on, I mean, this is the sort of games that mainstream wants to play, is try to confuse you so that you don't look at a steak and look at a rice and both are equally good, even if you calorie equated or protein equated. No, it doesn't work.
Yeah, and they'll throw all this science around to confuse you too. Like, oh my God, you need that, post-workout insulin to like, shuttle all those nutrients into your muscle tissue. Like you need the post-workout carbs. You need to have these pouches of maltodextrin that you just like suck on like a
Oh yeah,
like a toddler after
Yeah.
your workout, so you can replenish glycogen right away. It's like, here are the studies, and it's like, well, I mean, I think just a little bit of common sense goes a long way, right?
yeah. It's like, okay, so I'm not raising my insulin. So what happens to the nutrients? They just like disappear, right? I'm having a more nutrient dense diet with red meat, animal foods, but because I can't raise my insulin, they just disappear and then just get wasted. Nonsense, absolute nonsense. And the glycogen thing, it's like once you are adapted, uh, it's been measured both in keto athletes and carbohydrate athletes, and the glycogen levels are closely the same between the two. The body adapts to whatever fuel you're using, so you have the glycogen stores that you require, that you've trained your body to use. So if you've been weightlifting for a year, or for a long time, and then you switch to keto, that early transition period, you're going to feel a difference, but then you just adapt to it, and then you replenish your glycogen levels just like you were before. So your body's pretty smart, and it seems to prefer fat as a energy substrate. And yeah, you know, you don't you we have fellowship of the Nate's word, and provable lifts.
Yeah, I mean, he's well, I don't know if he's still a state record holder, but I know he previously broke the state records for Nevada, the state he is in, for powerlifting records. So I mean, that's a pretty impressive stunt to pull, especially as a carnivore, especially when he was doing it when he was eating 4 meals a week. That's just insane. Courtney says, standard Americans, standard Americans.
The standard Americans, indeed.
Generic ones,
The generic, it's just like
off the factory line Americans. Just
the mass-produced, factory farmed.
yeah. They only see chicken as boneless, skinless chicken breast. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. With chicken, yeah, it's the skin is tasty. The thighs, the wings. Yeah.
Yeah. So Nate said, crap, so sorry about that. Yup, phone died. Wasn't paying attention to battery life. Had to get to a charger.
Oh.
Yeah. It sounds like he might come back. I don't know.
We'll see.
I don't know. Yeah.
We'll see.
But yeah, no, that glycogen thing. I mean, there's studies out there that demonstrably show like, well adapted, mind you. You got to be well adapted because it is going to take some time for you to adapt to burning fat as a fuel if you're doing it for the first time, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing it for the first time. So there is that to keep in mind. But the studies show glycogen replenishing occurs like at the same rate. And yeah, I mean, it would be kind of hard to find a study that proves that the body prefers ketones or burning fats as a fuel, because you can't put a human with zero blood glucose, because that would be very dangerous.
Yeah.
But there's this narrative from like the carb copers, the pro sugar people. And again, if you like sweets, like that's cool. I like sweets too. I stay away from them. Okay, I don't feel good when I have them. But these people, they put out a narrative that, oh, your brain needs the glucose, or like the cells of your reproductive cells need the glucose. And we'll have to cover this at some other point, but all those studies are like based off of like in vitro studies. So just like you have like a clump of cells on a petri dish, and they're like, oh, we'll put like a glucose solution, like, well, and some ketone solution. What do the cells pick? And it's like, come on, man, like, you're gonna use that to justify you eating mangoes and pineapples and like guzzling Coca-Cola. Like, just say you like sweets. Like, that's cool too. You don't have to make it about this whole other issue. But yeah, I wanted to ask Nate about his take on, like, trying fruit and going from carnivore to an animal-based diet, right? That includes fruit, only fruit.
Yeah, would have been interesting to hear his opinion on that.
Yeah, discriminate against other plants based on toxicity, which I think is kind of cruel.
Yeah.
What's Frank saying?
As an avid runner, I used to use carbs as fuel, eating toast with peanut butter and banana before everyone. Yeah, that sounds like pretty runner food.
Yeah.
Toast, peanut butter, and banana.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there, man. I mean, I used to be a competitive swimmer. Well, this was back in like middle school, high school, before I had a nasty shoulder injury, and I was having like oats and peanut butter, because you had to carb up.
Yeah, that was like the standard food.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah. Okay. Seems like Nate can't make it back.
okay.
He says, I really want to finish the conversation too, but the only charger we have here is in the middle of the floor, and there's a client here being trained by another coach that I don't want to disturb.
Fair enough. But we'll have to have a Nate part 2.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, I had questions for him. I want to learn how to get my numbers up.
Yeah,
That's
the
it.
juicy stuff about getting your numbers up.
Yeah. So if you're still watching, or for anyone who watches this in the future, I feel like one of the mistakes I had in my lifting career, and I'm 25 years old, but I've been lifting since like even before I was 15. I used to be a competitive swimmer, and I would lift weights as an add-on outside of training for swimming. But I was always caught in this. I always thought to myself, I want to train in the 8 to 12 rep range, because I don't care about being strong. I never really cared about being strong, because to me, being strong, or like being a strongman, was like these, huge fat guys,
Yeah.
right? Just like lifting ridiculous amounts of weight. I'm like, I don't want to be those guys. I just want to be like, like a movie star, superhero kind of looking. I just want to be as big as I can.
Yeah.
Right. So lifting in that 8 to 12 rep range, and I realized looking back that was a big mistake in my training, because I could never get my numbers up. Right.
Yeah. Same. I kind of wish if your focus was to build muscle, was to kind of be taught that you need to train all rep ranges. That is your strength, hypertrophy, even higher rep ranges, because your body has a fantastic ability to adapt to whatever stimulus you're doing. So if you adapt to the 8 to 12 rep range, you're stuck. You won't be able to progress from there. Every run. Yes. Yeah, part 2. I want to get some yak liquor. He's holding the secret. Yeah, I know. It's a very, very opportune timing of going away, and not revealing the yak liquor secrets. You're the first ever animal-based alcohol, and I'm using the term animal-based as in it comes from an animal, right? It's not some secret sugar fruit. I wonder if you can make alcohol from milk.
Yeah. Well, you can make alcohol. I know you can make alcohol out of honey,
Mm,
right? Why don't we bring that back? Honey mead.
honey mead.
I drink that. Honey mead seltzer.
uh,
Potential business idea.
yeah, yeah. All right.
But all right. Yeah. We'll wrap it up. We hit the hour-and-a-half mark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hour and a half mark.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We appreciate you. We are going to have another guest on Thursday. We're talking to a farmer on Thursday, one of the farmers that we buy our beef from, Triangulus Livestock. They're based out of, I always forget the name of the city, but it's Idaho,
Rexburg.
Idaho. And yeah, looking forward to that conversation. And we'll definitely have to have Nate come back on, talk about the yak milk
Yes, sir.
and how to get the numbers up. He needs to reveal the secret.
Yeah.
Part 2.
We're not gonna stop bugging him until he tells us how.
Yeah, until we can bench 500 pounds.
500.
Well,
All right.
All right, yeah, we're gonna go have some beef for dinner. Hope you guys have beef too. Thanks for watching, and as always, like, subscribe to all of the things. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, and if you'd like to support us, go check out our merch, support our affiliates, and if you need any help on your weight loss journey, hit us up. You can find us at Butterfield Fitness on Instagram.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Have a good
Peace and
night.
have a good night.